Hello! For the next 5 minutes or so, I'm going to present to you how you can describe a new species in just 3 steps. But before we begin, let's start with addressing the question of why identifying new species even matters. Now, it can be argued that the species is the basic unit of biodiversity, which means it's essential for the study in disciplines such as ecology and evolution. But beyond the academic, the species is the main focus of most conservation initiatives and the associated laws. These include the Species at Risk Act, the Endangered Species Act, or the Convention on the International Trade in Endangered Species. So as you can see from all of this legislation, what scientists define as species has real-world consequences. This can affect everything from international trade to development, natural resource extraction, and even what you're permitted to hunt and fish. So now that we're in agreement that what we describe as species matters, let's move on to the steps of how you're able to do so. Step 1 being become an expert. Now, the most traditional way of doing this is to spend years and years of graduate training focusing on one particular group of organisms for which you have an affinity. During this time, you're going to read thousands of books and articles and learn the tools of the trade, what's relevant to your group, whether it's microscopy or genetics or some other kind of skill. If you do not want to become a professional expert, there's another way to become an expert, which is through the School of Life. So if you spend a lot of time outdoors in your leisure time, observing nature, this is another way to put in those necessary hours. Now, after you become this expert in whatever path you took, you need to get some specimens in order to be able to determine what's actually different. Now, a standard way to do this is to conduct field work in areas where you're likely to find your organism, or alternatively, you can use the resources of your local natural history collection, such as the one we have at the Canadian Museum of Nature. This is where specimens have been deposited by scientists, both past and present, and it is a treasure trove of biodiversity. After you have your specimens, you need to focus on those characters that are relevant for your study group to determine whether something is actually new. So for the deep sea eels that I'm working on right now, counting the number of vertebrae in their backbone is often a way to distinguish species. But not every species has a backbone, so you need to find some other kind of character. Maybe it's mouth parts in a crustacean, or beaks in finches, or petal types in irises. Every once in a while, morphology, the physical characteristics, don't give us enough information, or we want some additional data, and we turn to genetics. So we can sequence from one gene up to the entire genome these days to also look for differences between organisms. After you've collected all of this data, it's necessary to analyze it and present it, probably in a fairly tedious way for publication, and ultimately to make valid your species. The final step to describing a species is to give that species a name. And of course, there are rules, hundreds of pages of rules defined according to which group of organisms you're working on. Once you have those rules down, you can move on to the fun part. One common way to name a species is to base it on some part of what it looks like. So this orchid has really large leaves and was given the name Gigantea. These mycologists had a little more fun with their mushroom that they were describing, thinking that it resembled some famous cartoon character, and they gave it the name Spongiforma squarepantsii. Geographic location is also often commonly used in a species name. We've got the Canada goose, canadensis, and you can also take a more philosophical approach, making a comment on the existential status of a particular species, such as its state of exile. Don't forget that celebrities are also fair game and can be honored with a species name. Charles Darwin has hundreds of species named after him, including this dinosaur example here. And one of our very own scientists at the museum named a beetle after a famous baseball player. Feel free to also bring your species name a little closer to home by honoring a scientific mentor or perhaps a daughter who has been particularly inspirational. Now, to sum up, the 3 steps to identifying a new species are to become an expert, to find something different in your group of organisms, and then finally to give it a name. And don't forget to publish.